Morning.
Good morning.
Hello. You okay?
Deb's all bright and shiny today.
She is very bright and
For a
shiny.
change.
Just before we came online, her head was full of the bright sunshine on her face. She looked like...
Yeah, I'd just been up the mountaintop.
Yeah. It was
like a
transfigured.
mountaintop experience.
Or, as she said, leading a gig at the Electric Palace. Either way.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know. I'm going to the Electric Palace later this evening to see Ruby Wax.
Are you?
Oh, that's cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
I drove through Bridport. It must have been last week, maybe the week before. They were all dashing in for Barbie.
Oh, I know. I didn't.
Great outfits.
Yeah, I heard about it. I wasn't there, but apparently it was a sellout, and it was a great atmosphere. There was lots of whooping and
Excellent.
yeah, dancing in the aisles and all sorts. So yeah,
We ought to do a rev chat on Barbie, but perhaps not today.
yeah.
I'll do it on Ken.
Have you
Yes.
seen the film?
No.
Oh, you must. It's fabulous. Have you not seen it, Deb, either?
I have seen
Oh,
it.
you have?
Yeah. Yeah.
Great film. So, yeah. But there we go.
There we go.
No,
yeah.
David.
No, David.
Oh, so David's in Turkey, is he?
Mm-hmm.
Lovely. I hope they're having a really great time.
Yeah, and the funerals are flooding in.
Oh, yes.
Getting them all lined up for when he gets back.
Yeah, well, I think, yes, now if the phone rings now, I might be putting them in his diary, not mine.
Yeah.
We're sorting that out, so that's fine.
Oh, well, here we go. Autumn's nearly here.
I know. Well, what about yesterday? Did you get completely soaked?
It was dreadful yesterday, and all yesterday I was contemplating the fact that tomorrow I'm going camping.
Oh, mind you, it's all right today. I wouldn't mind
It's
pitching my
much
tent
better today. Yeah, it is much better today. So.
You could always think your campsite is likely to be not very busy next week.
Yes.
It's definitely not going to be very busy. I don't know why I booked ahead so much, as if it was going to. I think I booked it when we were having that really warm spell. I obviously live in the moment more than I thought.
Excellent. Yeah, no, it was proper drenching weather yesterday. Walking back from the train, I managed to get completely soaked down to my underwear. So that was pretty grim. Yeah. But there we are. At least it was on the way home and not on the way there.
Oh, yeah. Can you imagine that all day?
All day.
Yeah.
That was much better.
Yeah, so I think I got drenched walking back from school assembly.
Oh, dear.
And then going out again last night, putting on my wet coat.
Oh, always the
That
same.
hadn't had a chance to dry out. There was a lot of rain about yesterday.
I have to say, I always have admiration for you dog walkers when the weather's like that, and particularly when we have a relentless spell, because you must just be constantly putting wet things on.
I know.
Take your reluctant dog for a walk. Because
my dog was really reluctant yesterday. I was walking along and I looked behind me and she'd stopped. She was miles behind and she was just standing there going, "Really? Do we have to go?"
I think our dog walk was literally half an hour before dark. Because it just stopped raining.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So right, quick, let's dash out.
Yeah, off we go. And having the previous weeks having to wait for ages because it was too hot to walk your dog.
Yeah, the dogs are thinking, what's going on?
Oh, poor dogs.
All out of proportion.
Yeah. Should we have our pause then?
Yes, let's do that.
So our reading is for this Sunday coming up, for the 16th Sunday after Trinity. I do start to lose count by the time we're this end.
We're on 16.
Yeah, okay. And we're from Matthew's Gospel, chapter 20, verses 1 to 16. Jesus said to his disciples, "The kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire labourers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the labourers for the usual daily wage, he sent them into his vineyard. When he went out about 9 o'clock, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and he said to them, 'You also go into the vineyard, and I'll pay you whatever is right.' So they went. When he went out again about noon and about 3 o'clock, he said he did the same. And about 5 o'clock, he went out and found others standing around. And he said to them, "Why are you standing here idle all day?" They said to him, "Because no one has hired us." He said to them, "You also go into the vineyard." When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his manager, "Call the labourers and give them their pay, beginning with the last and then going to the first." When those hired about 5 o'clock came, each of them received the usual daily wage. Now, when the first came, they thought they'd receive more, but each of them also received the usual daily wage. And when they received it, they grumbled against the landowner, saying, "These last worked only 1 hour, and you've made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of the day and scorching heat." But he replied to them, "Friend, I'm doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for the usual daily wage? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give this last the same as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Or are you envious because I am generous? So the last will be first, and the first will be last."
I just kept thinking how that contrasts to last week's reading, where we had 10,000 talents, which in my commentary said was an unimaginably large amount of money.
Yeah.
So we've got a huge amount of money and debt being forgiven.
Yeah.
And here we've got a day's work being given for an hour's work.
So
A day's pay for an hour's work.
Yeah. So the common currency of the kingdom is generosity then.
Yeah.
And grace, it's not about, what you've earned at all.
It's quite hard for us to get our heads around that, isn't it? Because it's so anti what the world talks about.
Yeah.
So which one of us works the hardest in God's kingdom to have the best place in heaven?
Yeah.
Is there a best place in heaven?
Well, you see, can we sit on your left and your right? I mean, obviously there was a sense of that, but obviously it was all kind of brought down. It was. I always love that reading because they always blame it on the mother, don't they?
She was jostling for her children's position. Yeah. I mean, it's so inherently unfair, this story, in the terms of the world, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you can imagine, like the fair trade movement or the living wage movement. And, they're actually saying, everyone deserves to be paid what they're worth and what they've earned. And that's really important. And then this is saying, well, yes, it is important that people are paid, but, the generosity with which we might pay them might be beyond those parameters.
Yeah.
It makes us feel a bit uncomfortable because you think, oh.
So does this take us in the realms of when we keep hearing on the news that our whole world is going to be automated, we're all going to be made redundant and not have jobs because AI is going to take over the world? Does that mean that how do we earn enough money to get paid? Or actually, is this about something a little more important, a little bigger, a little actually completely different? And it's not actually about money at all. And I think that bit on the equality, everybody gets the day's wage, is actually, we don't have a hierarchy in heaven.
No.
Do we? Because it does say the first will be last.
Yeah. So it's all reversed. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I don't think we could take this as the Bank of England are discussing whether to put up interest rates again today. And maybe we should say to them, take this as your economic background to what you might be doing. It's not, I don't think it's designed for business leaders, this parable, but it might be designed for all of us to think about how generous we might be in terms of not just money, but everything. But more importantly, how generous God might be in ways that we will find difficult to comprehend.
Yeah, I mean, the notion of fairness, it's interesting that who decides what's fair, because actually in the world, even though some people earn huge amounts of money, because society often says, well, that's right because they're important or they've got a lot of responsibility. But it depends how you look at that, because the responsibility of a nurse or somebody who's caring for the helpless, those kind of responsibilities aren't given the same weight as the responsibility to think about the economy or how we deal with money. And so fairness is always kind of skewed anyway, isn't it? You know, the way we think of what's fair. But it is interesting to me that quite a lot of times people do sort of buy into that. Even people who are really struggling say, oh, no, that is fair because so-and-so or those sector of people do that. And this parable completely undercuts that, because it's not using that sense of fairness at all. It's talking about generosity and the sort of extravagance of God to see something other than the hierarchical way of looking at the way the world does it, I suppose.
And it's intriguing because how would our churches or our communities of faith be if we were equally generous to? And I think sometimes that's what churches are. They're very generous to people, or to the community, to each other, to God, and that can make people feel uncomfortable, because I remember, well, we do it every year. We go and hand out things in the square at Easter in Beaminster, and Easter at Christmas. And we literally, I mean, all we're giving away is a cup of coffee and a biscuit, or a cup of coffee and a chocolate or something, an Easter egg. And everyone's reaction is, are you collecting for charity? And we're like, no. We just...
Well, I did it one year.
Give it away.
Christmas carol singing.
Yes.
Because you always go around, sing carols and wave a collecting tin in front of somebody. We went and sang carols, and I waved a tin of chocolate sweets.
Yeah.
Said, have a sweet, have a Christmas.
Sweet. Yeah.
And like you say, people find that rather strange.
What do you do with it? Yeah, absolutely.
What do you do with it? But this is, if we take this on God's dimension as God, the owner of the vineyard, actually, what he's talking about is our daily wage is our salvation. And whether we just do an hour's work just before we die, or we devote our whole life, our salvation in God's kingdom is the same. And, if we spend 80 years faithfully loving and serving God and being generous and kind, and then somebody leaves a not very pleasant life, but confesses their sins at the end, their daily wage is the same, as in God loves them and accepts them and forgives them.
Yeah.
But isn't it interesting that, and it reminds me of the older brother in the story of...
Yes, I was just thinking that.
Isn't it interesting that there's something in us that gets cross about that?
Yeah.
That there's a sense in which we go, but hang on.
I know.
I've done it for ages.
Yeah, I think there is a message to the people on the inside and the people not on the inside as well, isn't there? Because I think that's why the prodigal son and this strike people in church a bit hard, because they're thinking we're faithful. But I guess the church and our faith is about looking outwards, and it is not just for those who feel that they do belong. It's for the people that don't think that. And I think there's lots of organisations actually that work like that in the world. They're just the small things, but I think it's the foundation is that foundation, that Christian foundation is maybe gets in other places, but it is really difficult for people to feel comfortable about that if they think that they're not getting the generosity that others are getting. But they're actually getting it. It's just that, well, we should come first. And the first and last thing is interesting, isn't it?
And also, I think it depends, as with all parables, it's where you put yourself in it. So last week, Peter was asking the question, well, how many times have I got to forgive? Me having the moral high ground. And then the parable about the slave who owes all the money, and you think, well, do you feel like the slave who owes the unimaginable debt?
Yeah.
And if you do, then your view of forgiveness is really different. And here in this parable, if we feel like the person who rocked up at 5 o'clock, we're going to feel very differently about the generosity of God than if we believe we're a 9 a.m. starter.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, and it's useful, I think, for us as people of faith, to try and put ourselves in the shoes of people who are experiencing this for the first time or coming to it new or are early on in a journey of faith, because actually seeing it through different eyes reveals something new about what it might tell us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So was that a challenge for us then? What time of the day were you hired?
Yeah.
And how does it make you feel?
How does it make you feel? Yeah.
You can go all the way back to when we first believed.
Yeah.
But when you think about our families, I sometimes think this, we don't think it like that. So if you're a family, like a nuclear family, and there's 2 of you, and then a few children come along, you don't think the one that was born last is the least simply because they haven't been around so long, do you? And I think maybe if we think about it a bit more like that, which, I've often heard people say, oh, I don't know if I could love a second child the same as I love, and then your love just gets bigger. And I think, if you think a bit like that, if instead of thinking of people as, oh, they're outsiders or they don't deserve because they haven't been around doing all the work.
Yeah.
But if we saw them in a different way, or if we see each other in a different way, I haven't seen this film, but I saw a preview of this film, this Ken Loach film that's coming out soon. And it's the same, it just made me think of this parable because it's about a community up north where it's really difficult and life's tough. And into this community come some Syrian refugees. And there are those who don't want them, life is hard for us already. We can't stretch it any further. And there are those who say, there was this lovely phrase, because I think it was a mining pit town or something, and they said something like, those who eat together stick together, which is, you could say that is like the basis of the Eucharist, and it was all about how the hearts of these people soften, I guess. I haven't seen the film, but it's a really lovely analogy that, sometimes if we see people as outsiders, we won't have that same generosity that God has. But when we see them as part of us, we would see them differently. So,
and the fact that they would have something to teach us. So in this the economy, this parable, what does a 5 p.m. worker have to teach us?
Yeah, exactly.
What's their experience of generosity and faith going to offer a community that's largely made up of 9 a.m. hired people?
Yeah.
Actually, if we have the grace, because it requires grace, doesn't it, to be that generous and open?
Yeah.
But we will be changed, I think, by our hospitality and our welcome and our and the space to listen to people's stories. You want to hear the stories of those who have received the generosity of God, because it reminds us, if we that we have received that generosity too.
I've often had people comment to me, oh, I can't start going to church because everybody will look at me and talk, and I'll feel intimidated and they'll make me feel guilty. And I thought, well, actually, that's not our job. The job is, you've come to work at 5 o'clock, come and join us.
Absolutely.
And actually, like you say, that's almost a challenge for us, isn't it? To make sure that if we've been working since 9 a.m., we welcome the 5 p.m. worker and say, come alongside and help us for this last hour.
Yeah.
Without saying, well, you're a bit late to the party, your job's just sweeping the floor.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? We bring them alongside. And
if that's the missional heart of our church, that's our vocation, isn't it? To do that stuff. Welcome well. Good stuff.
Excellent.
Really nice. I've missed you all.
Have we missed you, Jo?
We have, yeah. Yeah.
We're going to get you back next week.
I don't know. I can't remember. I have to look at the list. I don't think so. I think you're back to normal next week. Actually, I know what I won't be here next week because I've got Danish clergy that I'm speaking to at college next week this time. So there we are.
Oh, that sounds really exotic compared to Rev Jo, isn't it?
Oh, well, it's been a regular thing for the last few years. It's very exotic. There's rumours of a trip back to Denmark. I'll believe that when it happens. But
that would be great.
Penciled in for 2024.
That sounds lovely.
So
you have to come back and talk to us about how different state churches are funded.
Well,
Denmark have a very different model.
We've talked about that before, haven't we? About Sweden and Denmark and their funding system. But what's fascinating, and this actually fits to the parable. It's very easy, I think, to get bogged down in finance in the Church of England and worry about our money, which is difficult at the moment. But interestingly, speaking to clergy from state-funded churches who have an abundance of wealth, the challenge of mission is exactly the same.
Right.
Yeah. So even if the bills are paid, it doesn't make you any more, or make our congregations or any of us more confident in sharing the gospel, which I find fascinating. And it's about generosity of God. There we are.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
But that's perhaps a topic for another day.
For another day.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to start next week recording at 5 p.m. instead of 8:30 in the morning.
I don't know. I'm not as perky at 5 p.m. Yes, but you get less for your money.
Is it downhill from here, Jo?
By 11 p.m. By 11 a.m. that'll be the peak of the day will be gone. It's a small window of opportunity.
Well,
anyway, thank you for having me, and I'll see you again soon.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Okay,
Great
thanks,
to
everybody.
see you all.
Bye. We're not getting our
Bye.
usual introduction to find us on social media.
Oh yeah, go on then.
Find us on social media. If you found this, you found us.
Yeah. Jolly good. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.